Alright guys, welcome back. So today it's going to be another little DeFi course. Basically we're going to be going over two main stakes of earning through DeFi, and that's going to be liquidity pools and yield farming, and how to correctly hodl your bags and take profits, while also keeping your bag secure and healthy. These are two main ways I use to generate a good amount of income, uh, daily, monthly, however it may be. And if you are able to wrap your head around it, or just be able to get into it and without understanding, which sometimes is what it requires, this is a way to generate constant income. And this is how a lot of people who make a lot of money in the sector do things. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about, guys, is going to be liquidity pools. Okay, so the basic function of a liquidity pool is going to be generating yield, right? Now we'll get to that in the next little bit, but the basic mechanics, the underlying core mechanics of a liquidity pool is it generates income, which is yield, in two ways: through transaction and interaction fees with the platform. So it usually charges some type of a fee to interact with it, which is cycled back into the pool, and also through increase in the value of the underlying staked asset. Now that, on the flip side, can also lead to impermanent loss, which we're not going to dive into a lot. I'll just quickly go over it. Impermanent loss is that if the value of the underlying staked asset, for this video we're going to be using BNB for all these examples. So let's say BNB all of a sudden tanked and the value of BNB was just going down, 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 but people were still in the liquidity pool staking and expecting their daily yield. Then the pool can experience, and all the users can experience, what is called impermanent loss, which means you are losing money even though it's unrealized loss because you haven't gotten out, right? Because staked assets are staked. But you eventually, the pool will dry up, all the users will take all the money out, and you will end up at a overall loss. That is the risk of impermanent loss. That is the risk of all liquidity pools. So you generally want to get into liquidity pools that you believe the underlying asset of the pool will not do that, right? So like I said, for BNB, BNB is not going to dry up. It's not going to go away. It is a main stake in crypto, just like Bitcoin and other coins, and it does quite well. Binance is quite large. So that's what we're going to be using for these examples here. So again, liquidity pools generate the yield that they pay their users through fees and through increases in the underlying value, and then the value of the underlying asset of the stake pool, like if you were staking BNB. So that is the core functions. A lot of other things can happen. Liquidity pools can also generate fees from trades that go into the liquidity pool, fees from people buying a specific thing, like PancakeSwap has their own liquidity pool for their cake tokens. So when people buy cake tokens, those fees also go into their liquidity pool for staking, where you stake cake. Also, transaction fees on the platform, swaps and all that stuff, they also funnel some of those fees into their liquidity pool. But again, if the value of cake dried up tomorrow or plummeted and people are still staking and taking payments, the pool will dry up, and unless you're already reached your ROI or profit, then you will have a realized loss at the end through impermanent loss. Let's move on to the next slide. Let's talk about yield farming. Okay, guys, this is the product of the mechanics of a liquidity pool. Why do you join a liquidity pool? You join a liquidity pool to farm yield, called yield farming, which is your daily percentage that you are paid from the liquidity pool. Now, up to 1% is sustainable yield farming. People are going to say that that's crazy, yada, yada, yada. I do this full time. I'm in several liquidity pools paying 1%, and they've been up for years. My liquidity pools that I produced have been up now for going on 60 days, paying 1%, just fine and healthy. Anything over 1%, I am going to say is high risk, because the percentage being paid out is so high that if the underlying but if that underlying asset, let's say ETH, let's say you're in an ETH liquidity pool. ETH has been doing bad as of late, so you are risking the pool drying up, because if it has only a certain amount of ETH, and because ETH's doing bad, people aren't staking more ETH, but they are still taking, right? And ETH is worth less and less and less, then the TVL, the total value locked, is less and less and less, right? Like I said, we'll get into this in just a moment, right? So, let's say that when you got in, the value of ETH was $2,000, right? And there was 10 ETH stakes, so $20,000 was in the pool. There's 1,000 people taking, 50 cents or a dollar a day. And then all of a sudden the value of ETH is 1,500. Well, out of nowhere overnight, and not from people taking, $5,000 of the amount of money available in the pool is gone. And let's say that on average, every month $1,000 is taken out of the pool. Well, so now the pool has an expectancy of 15 months. It was 20 months just a minute ago, but now it's 15 months. And if it keeps dwindling and people keep taking, it can rapidly reduce the life rate of that liquidity pool. And then all of a sudden you go to log in one day and there's no more money in the pool. All the ETH was taken. Now it doesn't matter if ETH recovers or not, the pool has no money to pay out. This again is impermanent loss and then realized loss, right? So I tend to get into pools, Bitcoin pools, BNB pools. Sometimes I like assets that don't perform as well. Polygon, right? There's a great upside in that. You get in when Paul's low. Polygon is building, and when the token takes off, all of a sudden the TVL of the pool is massive, and it'll last for years and years and years. As well as through constant staking. You want to be involved in a pool with an asset that people like. Right, BNB, people buy BNB all the time. They want to grow it. They like the yield farm. They hear about it. They stake their BNB. They stake their Bitcoin. They stake their Polygon. Right. People aren't out there forming Pingu liquidity pools or this, that, or the other thing. Right. They're not going to last. So liquidity pools, you want to make sure you're getting into liquidity pools that are general mainstay tokens, right? Maybe Solana, but I'd stay away from ETH, honestly, guys. I'd go for Bitcoin, BNB, Polygon, maybe USDT, which is a stable coin, which, because it's a stable coin, the liquidity pool has no chance of an upside, right? It will never gain TVL except through the mechanism of new users coming in or current users staking more. But it also cannot experience impermanent loss, as it is a stable coin, a staked asset pegged at $1. So, I like the potential of gain with the risk of impermanent loss. Polygains is another liquidity pool that I have that's doing well. You can see all these videos on my channel about these things, links and all that. But so that is the point of a liquidity pool, is to farm yield, yield being the daily percentage you are paid. Again, anything over 1% is going to be high risk. I have been in projects that have lasted a year at 3%. I've been in projects, that paid 15%, lasted a month, and it was just a quick grab. And you just have to know what you're doing, right? But 1% and under, I'm in several that have been going for years. So now let's move on to the other main way people in crypto tend to generate income or passive income. That's going to be hodling your bags and taking profits. I know the thing on social media obviously is, I'll never sell, hodl forever. We call those guys concrete hands. They will hold their bags through profit straight into loss. right? You don't want to be a concrete hands. You also don't want to be a paper hands, and every time the market flexes, you sell. Diamond hands do a little of both. They sell and they hodl, right? That's what we're going to cover, the proper mechanisms for constantly taking profit from your bags and still maintaining your bags and even growing them if you want. This is one of, not many people understand this. That's why all the things are, I'll never sell. They don't, the mechanisms of how to generate income off hodling are not known. Guys assume you hodl until the coin reaches an all-time high and you sell your whole bag. uh, then how are you going to generate money the next day? Unless you're selling your bag for millions, how are you going to generate any more income for yourself? So we're going to go over how to generate constant income from hodling bags. Right? It doesn't matter how much is in your bag. $1,000 worth of a token, 10,000, a million, 100,000. It doesn't matter. This mechanism applies to any bag that has the ability to generate profits, which some you're going to need to have X amount, but it differs for every token. So let's go ahead and get into this. How does this work? So guys, in this example, let's use BNB again. Okay, now through dollar cost averaging and all this, uh, which also happens with liquidity pools as people stake more BNB at different amounts of times, it makes the total, not the total value. The total value is dictated by the price of the asset in real time. But the overall liquidity of the pool and how much it's gained over time is generated by how much is staked at what different market prices it is staked. So leave us say that, I'm sorry, let's go ahead and select this calculator. Let's say that you have 10 BNB, and the way you maintain a bag is you must select an amount, a token, um, like an amount of a token, not a dollar amount. Like you're gonna say, in this bag, this BNB bag, I am going to always hodl 10 BNB. So you put 10 BNB in your bag. Okay, and let's say that your bag, you DCate it, and for the sake of argument, and to make this simple so we don't have to go down a rabbit hole, the price of each BNB in your bag is $600 per coin, and it just so happens that the market price currently is 600. Okay, maybe you got in at this time. You just were like, I'm going to build a BNB bag. The market's low. Now it's time to do it. You bought 10 BNB. 600 per BNB. You are going to have a total bag value of $6,000. 600 per coin, 10 coins in your bag. Your total bag value is going to be $6,000, okay? Now, let's say tomorrow BNB rallies, okay? And you have to decide how much you're going to sell off at. Let's say that, the coin gained $100, a massive pump, right? We see some things like that happening. Sometimes BNB will gain $20, $30, $40 in a day or so. Let's just say, for the sake of easy round numbers, that it gains $100. Now each BNB is worth $700. And you're still holding 10 of them. Now your bag is worth $7,000. Your original bag was worth $6. You've gained $1,000 simply by hodling. Now we don't want to just sit there and watch. All right, now let's say that we're pretty sure that the market, we did our analysis, we checked some groups. We think that probably in the next little bit of time it's going to rally, it's going to trend back down. Retest some lower waters under 700 per coin. So we're pretty sure we're close to the top. So we're going to say, cool, $1,000 is what we want to take from this bag. And we know now that BNB is worth $700, right? So we want to sell off 1.4 coins. So we're going to sell 1.4 coins off, $700 a pop. $980 is the profit we are going to take. Okay? So, from $7,000, we are now going to take $980, which is going to put us back at the original price of our starting bag, $6,000. We won't worry about the 20. Okay. Now the coin rallies, and now remember we had 10 and we sold off 1.4. So now our bag is 8.6 BNB, and we're not going to do anything now. Now, a couple days later, right, maybe the next day, doesn't matter, BNB trends back down. And we go and it settles back down at $625. Okay? So now we know that now we have to buy 1.4 BNB. If we think this is where the dip is, where this might be the bottom, good time to buy back in. We want to keep our bag healthy. We want to keep it secure, so we constantly buy dips. We don't wait for the mother of all dip. We buy all the dips. This is how this is done, right? So now, at 625 per BNB, we buy 1.4 BNB for a total of $875, which brings our bag back up to 10 BNB. We profited 1,000. I know everyone's gonna say it was 980. So, and we just had to spend 875. So we profited $105 in that move. Now let's say that move took us 1 day or 2 days. So we made $100 roughly by doing that. And now our bag is back at 10 BNB. Now, how do we know what our current DCA is? Well, we know we had 10 BNB and we sold off 1.4. which left us with 8.6, and we know that those 8.6 we paid $600 per coin. So we had a total for that bag of 5,160, and we also know that we just bought 1.4 coins at 625. So we had 5,160. That's the current total of our bag, and we divide that by 10, and we know that now we've paid 603 BNB, or $603 per BNB. So our bag increased, we want it to go down, but usually, again, that's why we DCA. Let's say that it dips even more tomorrow. You can, if you want, buy another BNB and then sell it. But this is how it's done. You go back and forth, buying the dips and selling off the small amount of profit at the top, and then buying that exact amount of coin back at a lower price, right, to regain on your bag. Some guys don't care about that profit and they'll buy more BNB, which actually will lower the total of their bag. Maybe now because they bought an extra $100 worth of BNB at that lower price, now maybe their bag total is 599 per BNB coin. But I prefer to make it a constant passive income stream for myself. So guys, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you learned something about the two main ways to generate income passively through crypto. I look forward to our next video. And again, I'll catch you on the next one.